Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward sons. I intend to talk about important topics every week in hopes of helping to improve our country and our way of life. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and defend America's middle class. So, let's get started. Jared Craig, Esquire, is my friend and a fellow officer with Veterans for America First. We're a dedicated coalition of veterans, former law enforcement, and pro-veteran American citizens united by a shared mission to advocate for the policies and leaders that prioritize the interest of our nation and its citizens. In coalition with Veterans for America First, there's Veterans for Trump and Legacy PAC. And these organizations work together to promote conservative values and conservative candidates across the nation. Jared is my friend, and I'm just going to turn it over to him right now and let him just talk. Jared, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. We could not have had a better Christmas gift for the American people, better than the November 5th the outcome of electing President Donald J. Trump for president. We have a positive future. We can breathe easy. We can see the future of our nation prospering. So I don't think I've been in a better mood in over 4 years. So
I got to admit, I've been walking on air since the election, too. I've just been happy as a pig in slop, as they say. Now that we've helped to get the good president elected, so, what's next? I mean, you've got a lot going on, and I want everybody to know about it. So just go ahead and tell everybody what you've been up to and what you got planned.
Well, first off, I want to clear the air for any issues of stolen valor. I'm not a veteran myself. I'm an advocate for veterans issues. I came into the organization in 2022 after running for U.S. Congress, where I put at the forefront the issues that touch our veterans closest: drug addiction, homelessness, vocational assistance, and how the VA could just do better. And so what we've been doing since 2022 is a lot of projects that are building up to the 2024 campaign. And those projects were to inform the public, the citizenry, as to the depth of the issues at hand. So one of the first documentaries that we put out was The Fall of the Sea, which discussed a wrongful conviction, how the federal government will coerce and push people into pleading guilty only to smear their name. And we've got tons of examples ranging from Michael Flynn, George Papadopoulos, and even one of our close associates, Stan Fitzgerald. Then we went to the border and we took a handful of our America First candidates, grassroots candidates, and we were wanting to show the American people what was going on at Eagle Pass, Texas. And this was last November. And we were illustrating the flow of people, where they were from, and what it actually looked like. So we could have firsthand experience without it being filtered through the media, without it being filtered through the government mouthpieces, which were very distracting at the time. And we got access to both sides of the border. And it illustrated the impact in Eagle Pass as a representative of every other border town that was dealing with this same influx of illegal immigrants. And without getting too far into that issue, we just wanted to educate the people as to what's actually going on with an unfiltered storyline. And then our last documentary that we put out as recently as March of this year was the history of Veterans for Trump and the movement, illustrating how veterans have historically been conservative Republicans and that they have been in support of Donald Trump and the America First policies for a long time, going all the way back to 2015 when we first saw Donald Trump come down that escalator. Now, what we're being transferring into, it was the campaign mode, where Make America Great Again, Save America. That was our goal. That was our intention of getting these America First candidates from President Trump all the way down to local sheriffs in many regards to get them in place so we can do the work that needs to be done. So we're pivoting into making America great again. And we're not just sitting here celebrating popping corks and cooking steaks, although that is appealing. But we're not resting very long before we jump back on the bicycle and actually do what's necessary for the candidates, for the country, and for our future. So we've been promoting different bills. At the state level, we have some bills concerning police safety, and currently we're going to propose that in Georgia and South Carolina that gives police officers a 3 to 5 foot buffer zone when they're performing investigative or arrest activities to avoid organizations, including the media or Antifa or BLM, from interfering with those activities to prohibit that interference. We've seen police officers in New York City doing just regular beat work, and they're being attacked by all kinds of, I'll just say, street people. I think that what comes to mind recently were the illegal aliens from Venezuela, but that's just one media story. It's happening way too often. So at the state level, we're trying to promote that. One of the big things that we identified in the election was how different states, they register their citizenry to vote. And I say citizenry, let me say residents or occupants, that they're giving driver's licenses at the state level that then registers for potentially non-citizen to vote in our federal elections. They're not checking IDs at the election, the precincts, and these illegal aliens are being registered. So looking into that bill itself, I have determined the constitutionality of a state issuing a non-citizen any identification as a violation of the federal to state relationship. The supremacy clause of the immigration law, the federal code, should override any state's circumvention of that. So what I'm going to propose in the collection of the bills that are terminating sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, and giving safe harbor to these government institutions that are working against our federal government, the solution that I find simplest, which is always the nicest and the cheapest, what I found is to prohibit the states from issuing any IDs to non-citizen. It falls right in line with our immigration law, that we would have exclusive subject matter jurisdiction at the federal level to regulate, monitor, and to manage the non-citizens within the confines of our country, and not allow those who are hiding amongst us to wrongfully absorb our resources, from education to public safety to hospitals and medical access. That they are clogging our system and eroding our tax base. Now, with that being said, the bill that I'm promoting is also going to mirror their visa status. So their ID expires the same time as their visa expires. And we got to have that coordination. And to monitor that, we can have software as simple as what they currently use now for suspending licenses for failure to appear in court, or for dads who aren't paying child support, or moms who are not paying child support, and their licenses are automatically being suspended. All we have to do is modernize a very simple tool to regulate and to identify. So with this mass deportation, we can identify the problem and then quantify the logistics. Now, what I was doing in the campaign was a lot of different things. I wore a lot of hats, ranging from an activist, where I went with a team of journalists and other candidates going up and down the East Coast in 2022. I sponsored the Trump bus and Veterans for America First. We sponsored the Trump bus with John Fredericks, and we went up and were promoting Donald Trump even before he announced he was running for president in 2024. We're getting the American people awake and aware. And what we learned on that bus trip was that there are conservative Republicans everywhere, even in the blue states,
yes,
deep blue cities, deep blue areas.
Even here in Maryland.
Yeah. I said, I was in Connecticut, and I said, I was supposed to find Bigfoot before I found a conservative Republican, and here you are, 100 of them. I said, now I'm scared I'm going to run into Bigfoot because y'all aren't supposed to be here. And they were surprised that anyone was coming up into the New England area because they felt abandoned and left out. Now, With that abandonment, we found that so many Democrats were abandoned because of the leftist liberal agenda, from the blue-haired cat ladies with no children, all the way around to the basement surfing communists that are willing to put on a mask and go burn a trash can somewhere. Those crazy people were abandoning the base of the Democratic Party, I'll say legitimate Americans, or the non-destructive, non-self-destructive Americans. So in dealing with that, we were very, I would say, on the ground, boots on the ground, to bring all voters that were willing to vote for Donald Trump a second time, regardless of how you voted in the past. And we were bringing the funnel of voters together that were, the base Republicans, the conservative evangelicals, and then those in the middle that just could not deal with the LGBTQ XYZ HDTV people. Those people didn't represent them, and we were with a welcoming arm. As we got closer to the primaries, our task was to take the establishment and the MAGA, which we typically infight, and bring them together. And that was actually more difficult than you think. And I won't name names, but some people were slower to the party than others. So as we got closer to the campaign, we started getting election day, we started focusing on voter registration and voter information and getting out and even knocking doors. I myself took the time in between all the different things I was doing, and I knocked on several hundred doors of unlikely voters. And I've got a whole nother podcast of strange stories of people who answered those doors. I could share that at another time, but I got a good cross section of those abandoned voters, those unlikely voters, and we saw a large number of people either saying they weren't going to vote at all, which, if they're leaning left and they don't vote, that counts to me as a positive vote on our side, or willing to give Donald Trump a chance because they saw a country falling apart and they saw one side creating the problems and the other side understanding the problems and willing to identify the problems for the purpose of solving those problems. And part of the definition between the two parties became not red versus blue, but them versus you. So a large government.
I like that.
It's the citizenry, and reminding the citizenry that the government is not your solution, that a larger federal government is never the answer. And, even to quote Ronald Reagan, he says, if the answer is the federal government, the question must have been really stupid. I think I paraphrased that a little bit. But illustrating that these rights are not granted by the government. They come from God, and we're fighting for your rights even if you don't understand them yet. Then we get to Election Day, and I took on the role as one of the attorneys for the RNC to advise and to oversee the ballot collection for the overseas ballots and how they were counted. During the early voting period, I was a poll watcher where I got to sit and watch the whole process, from opening the ballot bins and the very slow, meticulous way that they clip things and verify numbers and confirm the numbers, the ballots that went in and out. And I was one of many. And we believe that in Georgia and all the other 6 swing states, that our presence was much of a deterrent that wasn't there before. Where in 2020, we were not allowed to view things. We were pushed into corners, we were pushed into areas where we couldn't see what was going on. And we had to rely on surveillance video of ballot stuffing to see what actually happened. So,
if I may break in just a little bit,
sure.
I shouldn't say where I was in 2020. I was working for the federal government. And I will never, ever believe that wasn't rigged. But I'm going to tell you, we made this one, and I say we, too big to rig. And I'm so proud of all that you guys did. I'm going to put myself in that category. The whole nation came together. Moderates, some Democrats, and all the hardcore Republicans, we all came together, and I'm just so proud. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had to say that.
Oh, no, that's exactly what we did. Is we got the message out. We flipped voters' opinions, And we kept them from doing what they did in 2020. When we investigated what they were doing fraudulent, we determined it wasn't one thing, it was a little bit of everything. And what they did in one state was a little different than they did in this state. And we figured out how they did it. And we made ourselves present and consistent. And in many places, the Democrats didn't have a really a chance to cheat. There was no time for them to slip in boxes of ballots. And what was refreshing while I was watching it in live time was seeing what was expected with the mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots to be big buckets and bins like they had in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly, it turned into a one manila envelope. And among 7,000 ballots per day, we got like 4 mail-in absentee ballots. Whereas in 2020, it was a bushel basket at every precinct, and there were so many that they had to change the protocols to have the ballots counted days afterwards because they were understaffed. Now we go in and we're seemingly overstaffed. And we had Republicans and Democrats both observing, and it was refreshing to see vast differences between the numbers of the types of ballots and the frequency of those ballots as they were coming in before Election Day. So Election Day came and it was very smooth. All of us were apprehensive. Everybody wants to be the first one to say I was certain. But I don't think after living through 2020 that any of us had anything, a sense of certainty until we saw the numbers come through the television and we started hearing the numbers come through our back channels. And even when I heard various senators and congressmen and women that their numbers were coming up, I still was not in full belief until I watched concession speeches. That was my go-to because we felt burned last time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there's no way from watching what happened in 2020 versus now, just the numbers of total votes, that we can look back and easily see that. I'm sure you've seen the bar chart
Oh,
of
yeah.
Republican, and then 2020, the Democrat total vote jumped up, but the Republican was about the same. Now we
Mm-hmm.
came back down, and those votes are phantom votes. Who were they?
Yes.
And I think that they were most likely fraudulent, illegal aliens mixed with the deceased, mixed with stolen ballots from nursing homes, and etc. So I do think that the campaign took a lot of our resources and our time, but where we're at now is pivoting towards governance and giving the candidates who made it into office, those that we supported and those that we now support, that back America First values, back America First agenda issues, promoting issues that are going to benefit the veterans, for homelessness. And we saw, as of yesterday, Trump dedicated his salary for homeless veterans this time.
Wow. I
And
wasn't aware of that.
that was a statement he put out yesterday. Veterans have been awakened that their oath is still active and they
Yes.
see what they fought for is worth fighting for. And we have a chance to do so. Now, instead of just having politics of the porch or solving all the problems over a cup of coffee in the morning between you and your neighbor, we're getting out and we're giving the tools to the congressmen and women and the senators at the state and federal level to reset our country back to a simple federal government and to focus on the individual rights of the citizens, not for the benefit and ease of the executive branch of the states, meaning the police. Their job shouldn't be easy because when it comes to a contest between the government at any level and the citizen should take preference under the history of our United States.
I agree
Um,
150%.
there's a phrase that comes up in law school that, believe it or not, many prosecutors forget about, that we would much rather see 9 guilty people go free than to convict one innocent man. And I believe that was brought up recently with some of the rogue prosecutors in New York, and they claim to have never heard that phrase.
Let me ask you something. That Letitia James, there's just something about that woman that just drives me nuts. And what do you think's going to happen to her once Trump gets in?
Well, what I've looked at the whole time with these election interference cases is that they are election interference themselves, and they failed. That those actions are more of election interference than anything they accused Donald Trump or his team with. Now, Letitia James coming out with the defamation case and with the massive, or the, what was it, the punitive damages, that's going to be flipped on appeal.
Yeah.
When there was no victim, the mortgage bank that they claimed was the victim said that they would do business with Donald Trump's corporations over and over again, that they were paid back in full and early. So when it gets to the Court of Appeals, it's going to be overturned. And I believe her prosecution of that case is a violation of her oath. It's a violation of Donald Trump's Sixth Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights, and Eighth Amendment rights for, I guess, cruel and unusual punishment. In addition to the threats, the outright threats during the campaign, during the prosecution, and even trying to claim that she's going to get specific assets when Donald Trump is fully capable of signing a cash bond. And she was trying to get personal. And I'm not sure if the New York State Bar is too far down the left to care, but in other states, she would be subject to some penalties for what she has done. But regardless of what actually happens in the court, her name is trash at this point. Yeah. I don't know if she could get a job as a public defender in Woodbury, Georgia, getting parking tickets. So I don't see her having too much longevity in that field. And if so, her cover's blown. We know she's a shill for whatever comes out of Soros's idea package.
Well, let's throw in this Mike Bragg and this, what's her name, Fannie Willis down your way.
Bragg.
There you go, Alvin Bragg.
Yeah, Alvin Bragg, he keeps getting his ass handed to him. And apparently there's enough to hand him twice. But yeah, the guy doesn't seem to want to prosecute crimes that actually harm people, but he wants to promote crimes and prosecutions that are almost contrary to the American way. The Penny case that just came down. No prosecutor should have ever charged Mr. Penny. They almost didn't arrest him.
Yeah.
That it was many days later after Alvin Bragg felt, I wasn't there, but felt that he had some sort of political media stunt that he could pull after losing the case against Donald Trump. The man is, I think he's pointed in a direction and shoved. I wouldn't put him as the major decision maker there, but it falls on him because he's the prosecuting lawyer. Now, Fannie Willis is a whole nother, I'll say, ball of wax.
I was hoping you'd get into that.
Yeah, Fannie Willis is currently a member of the Georgia State Bar, transplanted from California and paid for by liberal activists. Now, there's some investigations going into her for how she's handling a lot of her litigation. The once again, election interference. Her charge of Donald Trump was an overt election interference. And the judge recently ruled against her, holding her in contempt for violating the Open Records Act, because the Judicial Watch out of D.C., which is a conservative oversight group, demanded information that illustrated the communication and the coordination between the DA's office of Fulton County and Biden's Department of Justice, which is improper. If you don't understand that's improper, that is very improper. Because, well, I won't go into a law school lecture, but nevertheless, she refused to give information that showed the open communication. At that same time, Alvin Bragg had a deputy DA appointed that came directly from the Department of Justice. That would be akin to a sitting, well, this is a loose metaphor, a sitting member of the Supreme Court coming down to handle traffic tickets. Yeah. That is what happened in New York with Alvin Bragg, and we started to see the same type of thing with the coordinating of those two agencies in the Georgia cases. Now, aside of her and Nathan Wade's ramblings and rumblings, I won't go too far into that, except for how she admitted to various crimes while that was under investigation in his divorce. So she's in the hot water for misappropriating campaign funds. She stated in her interview or witness testimony that she paid back Nathan Wade cash for these trips and luxury things that she had left over from the campaign. And as you know, and I know, there's not a whole lot of cash left over from a campaign that should end up in some personal private safe at her residence, much less used for the purpose of reimbursing a wine tasting or a cruise ship or some sort of rendezvous with Nathan Wade. But she's admitted to certain things. Her accounting of how much money she earns versus how much money she actually has, that's under investigation. And she has been promoting this case against the best interest of the citizens of Atlanta. We have a backlog of murder cases, actual crimes occurring, and she's prosecuting political charges. She even recently lost the Young Thugs case.
I heard about that.
The two supposed murderers, they were found not guilty. And the way she charged it, and I won't get, like, once again, I won't get into a law school lecture here, but the way she prosecuted it was completely wrong. And some of the plea deals that were entered in light of this are going to be subject to appeal also. But what you have is you have activist judges. We've heard of that for a long time. But the problem we're seeing now is activist prosecutors. And they are not being held accountable as, say, the JQC would be for the judges. Now, Georgia has a group of attorneys and prosecutors that have an oversight committee, and it's a three-member panel that can hold prosecutors accountable for either they're not doing their job or they're doing their job improperly. And those are two different things. Being overzealous in the wrong way overlooks the actual crimes, or if they're being way too lenient, it looks like they're not right fit for the job there. So we don't expect to see Fannie Willis around for very much longer in the area. I expect her to fizzle into some sort of hidden cubicle office somewhere, and maybe even change her name. I mean, for her Fannie to get spanked so often, I'd change my name. Between her and Pete Buttigieg, I figure the two of them have the two worst names in politics. But even I'll sidestep that for another day.
Well, let me ask you. This all boils down to me. Now, I'm not a lawyer. You know that. I'm just a regular dude who watch. This all stems from George Soros. Why is this man allowed to push his agenda all over not just the United States, but the entire Western world? He's been kicked out of several countries, but we just keep letting him get away with murder. Why?
I think he has a web of agency, right? If you have money and you've been around a long time, and he has, and the money has been fruitful, and he has people who are emotionally backed by him, all you've got to do is throw a little money at people and they start organizing. And I discussed this with some non-politically minded people over the weekend, but one of the issues that we have with the Republican Party is that we have families and businesses and lives and things going on that we have to work to maintain. A lot of people on the left do not. They're full-time crazy. They're full-time activists. They go out 24/7, and they are set up to, someone's paying for their food, their travel, their lodging, and they can run at it 24 hours a day. And that's kind of where I've found that they are an erosive force.
Yeah.
And George Soros is one of several. He's not alone, but they fund these organizations. Some of the organizations don't even know they're being funded. For instance, someone like Antifa, or not someone, a group like Antifa, they don't care where the bricks come from that are delivered across the street from the building they've been told to protest. They don't question it because they don't care. But George Soros, I think, represents the the Dr. Evil of today. Sorry to reference
I agree with you.
that movie, but he represents, in my mind, the cash that's flowing for America for the intent to implode, and we need to stop them politically. I think that if we were to somehow identify which organizations that they are a part of or controlling, to let the population, now that we've awoken the American people, to show them what's going on. And that might be the focus of another project that we're working on. There's a lot out there, but if people aren't looking for it, they're not going to be interested to find out what's really going on.
Well, I believe that the giant has been awakened. And I'm going to tell you, my hope is that when the Trump people take office, folks like you will be summoned and released to go after the bear. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, I have found that people ask me a lot of times, they say, Jared, you're just a country boy from Georgia, running a small law practice, and how do you get connected with all of these people and the cabinet picks like you referenced? We follow each other because we're closely associated, but I've met most of the cabinet picks that Trump has chosen, and people ask me, how do I get there? And it's not from brown nosing or any sort of promise game or favor exchange. It's from showing that you're competent and loyal, that if you're able to do something and willing to do it, that's really the currency that has helped our organization be trusted amongst those that are looking to be in power. Now that they've been elected, and we see so many of our congressmen and women, senators, governors, state house reps, all the way down to the sheriff, being put in power, we're not doing that to be their puppet master. We're doing that because we agreed together on the agenda. And what we're doing is getting them started with what they need. Some don't need much, others do, but getting them moving so we can make America great again, not wait for it to happen. And those that are more supportive, we want to also identify the best use for the veterans to get out and speak and to identify the issues as they come up. Now, 2020, 2015, Trump learned a lot about politics and who to trust and who not to trust and how to fetter out the swamp, drain the swamp. And one of the things that has been spoken about, so it's not confidential, I'm not breaking the story, but the idea of moving the three-letter agencies away from D.C. simply to get away from the poison employment pool that is part of the deep state. You know, it might not be the head of any department that is part of the swamp, but the staff all the way down to the janitor, to the runners, to the this, to that. We saw it in 2015, 2016. The military generals were telling their subordinates to not listen to Donald Trump.
Yes.
Imagine all of those in D.C. that are merely couriers or support staff. How easy is it for a secretary to sabotage an office?
Very, very easy. And I'm going to tell you, I saw it because remember, I spent a lot of time behind the fence. But here's the thing. I got one more question for you because I've been keeping you away from your family when you should be with your wife and kids. You know, I love working with you, and the whole Veterans for America First really has energized me, and I'm just thankful that we're being successful. But I'm going to give the floor to you. Rather than me asking questions, you just say whatever's on your mind.
Well, I want to tell the American people, for the first time in years, we can look up out of the valley. We can get our shoes on and get to work and pursue happiness without all the tentacles, entanglements, and restrictions that the federal government has been trying to put on us when it comes to masks, when it comes to mandates, when it comes to who can say what and who can do what and what words are banned and who's entitled to special treatment versus equal treatment, equal rights, and the federal government to be put in their place, the state governments to facilitate their powers the proper way for the American people, to get our immigration straight, to get our domestic production straight, to get our energy straight, and to get our American people to be proud of our American citizenship and our future for our children. That the people who are fighting for our future know how to do it because we know what our future holds. We're not trying to experiment with new crazy nonsense that we see the left doing. We're looking to honor the time-tested wisdom of our forefathers, the time-tested wisdom of a Judeo-Christian population, that the novel and erosive forces that are pulling tension away from these time-tested cornerstones of American history, those are going to be pushed off a little bit. As I said on social media, a freak on a leash will pull you into traffic, but it's up to you if you're going to let go in the bicycle lane or the fast lane. And I think we have a chance to avoid our nosedive of a nation and bring us back into a country that is respected, even feared, and trusted by our allies. So America deserves a cheerleader, a positive message, and President Trump and the America First candidates provide that. And me as a small piece of a supportive position, I want to be here to promote that this is a positive message, that we're here for our children's future and their children's future. So I'm not going to quit fighting. I'm not done anytime soon. We're just getting started, and keep an ear to the ground because we're going to see a lot of stuff moving very quickly, and it should give us more breathing room. So thank you for letting me come on the show and discussing what I've been doing, why I've been doing it, and what we're on our plan for the future, because it's going to take all of us.
I love it. I love it. Hey, how can people reach you if they need to?
Please go on our website of vfaf.us, and you can see the films. You can log on and watch those. You can contact us through the contact portal. We have opportunities for volunteering in various states. And as we grow, we're going to open chapters in every state. If someone's interested in opening a state chapter for local networking, please contact us, and we'll be more than happy to set up our network to include you.
Oh, yeah. And we're on Twitter X Spaces on Thursday nights at 7 too, right?
That's right. We have social media where we are all day, every day, but we do a weekly spaces of 7 o'clock Eastern time on Twitter or X now. And you'll hear a good roundtable, and we have good guests. But we're also getting out and speaking at local county GOPs, and we're promoting the idea of town hall. So even though we have a digital presence, we also have a physical presence. We will be attending the inauguration the end of January. So we'll have some good content of that. But please engage us. Reach out to us. If you have some suggestions, some ideas, we're everybody and for everybody.
Jared, I tell you, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the things that you do. I appreciate Veterans for America First and all the organizations that go along with it. I thank you for having the time to come on the program, and I look forward to having you back again.
Anytime. Anytime you need me, just give me a call.
Amen. Well, that's about it for now. This has been the Loyal Opposition Podcast, produced in association with Fallback Productions and Veterans for America First. Please like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and protect America's middle class. Be sure to get your copy of my book, Black Values Matter, available as an ebook on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. And also, remember, it's okay to disagree. But if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility for ourselves and for our fellow citizens. Thanks for listening to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. We'll see you next week.